Out in the deserts of modern-day Iran, there's this colossal structure made of mud brick, a silent giant that's been standing for over 3,000 years. This is the Ziggurat of Chogha Zanbil. Now, at first glance, it might just look like a big stepped pyramid, right? But it's actually a complex puzzle, a message left for us by a long-lost civilization, and in this explainer, we're going to crack that code together.
I mean, really think about that for a second. What if its shape, its size, its alignment with the stars could tell us a story? You see, some buildings are way more than just stone and mud. They're like texts. They're physical blueprints of what a whole group of people believed about the universe, their gods, and their own place in the grand scheme of things. And let me tell you, Chogha Zanbil has one heck of a story to tell.
All right, let's dive right into this enigma. To even begin to understand the message hidden in this ziggurat, we've got to know who built it, and just as importantly, when.
So to get our bearings, Chogha Zanbil was built around 1250 BCE. Now get this, that's over 1,000 years after the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was built by a civilization called the Elamites. These were a really powerful people who lived for thousands of years in what's now southwestern Iran, right next door to some of those famous Mesopotamian cultures you've probably heard of, like Sumer and Babylon. The man behind the whole project was a king named Antashgal. And he didn't just build a temple, he built this absolutely massive, 5-story sacred complex as a brand new religious hub. It was all dedicated to the head honcho god of his capital city, a deity named Inshushinak. So the key thing to remember here is that this was a project of incredible scale and huge religious importance. Now for our first clue in this puzzle, the building's really distinctive shape. I mean, why build it like a giant layered cake? What's that all about?
Well, Chogha Zanbil is a ziggurat. The word itself comes from a term that means to be high up. And it makes perfect sense, right? For ancient people living out on flat plains, mountains were these incredibly sacred places. They were the spots where the earth seemed to literally touch the sky, the homes of the gods. So a ziggurat is, pretty simply, a man-made sacred mountain.
And the architecture itself was designed to guide you on a spiritual journey. Just imagine it. You start down at this huge, broad base, firmly planted in the physical world. Then you have to follow these grand staircases that force you to walk a specific path, climbing up, level by level, getting closer and closer to the heavens. Right at the very top was the most sacred temple of all, the home of the god himself. It was a physical climb that was meant to be a spiritual one too.
So it's a sacred mountain, built for a spiritual journey. But a journey to meet who? Well, the ziggurat wasn't just a building. It was also kind of a celestial observatory, dedicated to two of the most powerful forces in the ancient world, the sun and the moon.
The Elamites worshipped the sun god, a guy named Nahhunte, as the ultimate judge. He was all about light, law, and cosmic order. But they also had immense respect for the moon, which they saw as this powerful symbol of fertility, abundance, and the great cycles of life and death. The ziggurat was a place where both of these incredible cosmic powers were celebrated.
And you know, we have solid proof of this because of a really fascinating detail. Ancient Assyrian carvings that show the ziggurat reveal it was decorated with these huge bull horns. And for the Elamites, the crescent shape of those horns was a direct, can't-miss-it symbol of the crescent moon. This wasn't just some random decoration. It was a bold statement of faith carved right into the temple.
Okay, this is where the story gets even cooler. The ziggurat's shape and its decorations, that's just the first layer. When we look closer at the actual layout, we find this hidden language of shapes and numbers, a kind of sacred blueprint of the entire universe, just as the Elamites saw it.
It all starts with two basic shapes. The ziggurat itself is a square building. The square symbolized the earth, stable, orderly, and lined up with the 4 cardinal directions. But this square temple was then enclosed by massive circular walls. And the circle? That represented the heavens, infinite, whole, and perfect. The layout literally combines earth and heaven in one single sacred space.
The first key number in this cosmic code is 4. And let me tell you, it pops up everywhere.
So, there are 4 main gates, and each one faces a cardinal direction. For the Elamites, 4 was the number of the earth. It stood for the 4 seasons, the 4 directions, and the stable, predictable order of the physical world. By building with the number 4, they were basically anchoring their sacred mountain firmly into the cosmos.
Okay, next up is the number 5. So, why 5 stories? What's the deal with 5? The number 5 was symbolic on a few different levels. For one, it represented the human form, a head, 2 arms, 2 legs. It also stood for a divine marriage, because it's the sum of 2, the first female number, and 3, the first male number. But most importantly, Elamite texts tell us that the sun god Nahhunte held the 5th spot in the heavens, so the 5 levels literally elevated his temple to his sacred number.
And that brings us to the big one, maybe the most sacred number of all in the entire ancient world, 7.
And this is where we see the ultimate cosmic connection. The outer wall of the Ziggurat had 7 gates. So why 7? Because back then, there were 7 celestial bodies you could see moving in the sky: the sun, the moon, and the 5 visible planets. 7 was the number of the heavens, a symbol of divine completion, perfection, the whole shebang.
So let's tie this all together. We've got the shapes of earth and heaven. We have the sacred numbers of the earth, of humanity, and of the gods themselves. What does this whole code finally tell us?
And here's the biggest takeaway of all. Chogha Zanbil wasn't just a place to worship the universe. It was the universe, in miniature, a microcosm. It brought together the square earth and the circular heavens. Its levels climbed from the human world to the divine world. Its gates and its dimensions were perfectly aligned with the numbers that the Elamites believed governed the entire cosmos. It was their entire worldview, built out of millions of mud bricks.
Ultimately, what the Ziggurat teaches us is that you just can't separate a culture's buildings from its soul. If you really want to understand what a civilization believed in, what they were afraid of, what they aspired to be, well, look at their most ambitious buildings. That's where you'll find their identity.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought to chew on. If a 3,000-year-old ziggurat can tell us so much about the Elamites, what stories are our own modern buildings, our shiny skyscrapers, our huge stadiums, our minimalist houses, telling the future about us? What do they say about what we value and what we believe our place in the universe is?